All right, team. Welcome, fellow veterans, transitioning service members, military spouses from all over the globe. Welcome to the GI Jobs Get Hired workshop. This is the pre-event for our virtual career expo next week, which is going to be on Wednesday, the 26th of May from 12 to 4 p.m. And that event will be sponsored by Geico and 84 Lumber. I'm going to do a quick introduction of myself. My name is Daryl Williams. I am also a retired Army veteran. I retired in 2017, where I spent a little over 20 years in active service. So I understand where each and every single one of you are, because I was there as well. The struggles of transitioning and trying to get into the civilian workforce it's real. We all understand that, you know, the foundations that are provided for us as we go through the transition assistance program is great, but we still need to continue to build upon that foundation. Luckily today, we have brought in two fantastic individuals that are going to provide some of their insight, experience, and in-depth knowledge to make you better. Today we have Dave Maurer, which is from GBX, and we also have Tommy Jones from Verizon. We're going to get into their introductions here very soon. As you guys are going through the webinar today, understand there is going to be some poll questions that we're going to be introducing to you as well. These poll questions, we would love to have your feedback as we're looking to get better so that we can provide valuable content to you folks so that you can get better as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Dave Maurer. Dave offers a wealth of experience as both a career Army officer and a senior leader within the private sector. His corporate leadership pedigree includes service as executive vice president and director for several firms in the Washington, D.C. metro area. He led a global training program spanning across 50 states in 15 countries in support of the Labor Department's training over 1.3 million service members and spouses in career transition. As a professional speaker, consultant, and trainer, Dave's audiences have included the World Bank, the CIA, the FBI, the U.S. Marshals Service, and the Department of Homeland Security. Each of the branches of the Armed Forces, the Project Management Institute, and businesses in the private sector. Absolutely impressive. He has presented at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., as well as the Harvard University Kennedy School of Government and several other universities. He's also authored and co-authored several books on leadership, project management, and professional development. Welcome, Dave. Also, we have Tommy Jones, which is the head of military diversity and recruiting for Verizon, responsible for programs, policies, and guidelines related to veterans across the nation. Tommy is currently the leader of Verizon's Valor Employee Resource Group. Tommy is also a retired First Sergeant, a fellow First Sergeant at that, from the U.S. Army Signal Corps. Welcome, Tommy. I got to speak on behalf of not just GI Jobs and military spouse, but Victory as a whole. We are absolutely ecstatic to have you gentlemen with us today, so welcome. So what I'd like to do now, guys, is you're going to see two poll questions that are going to pop up on your screen. As these poll questions come on board, please take the time and fill them out. It should only take you less than 10 seconds, but this is going to help us throughout the duration of this workshop to understand exactly what you are needing on your end so we can better serve you. All right, without any further ado, Dave, it's definitely your time to shine. We look forward to having you here. Please go ahead and share your experiences and all the insights you have. Let's make the audience better so they can be better prepared for next week's GI Jobs Virtual Career Expo.
Well, will do. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, I got you.
And can you see the slides?
Not yet.
Okay.
Go ahead and click on the share screen, which is going to be on the bottom part of the video presentation.
There we go. And how about now?
Yep, good to go. I'm going to put it in presentation mode and we should be great.
I'm trying to do that. It's not going into presentation mode. That's all right. We can do it this way. Well, thanks again for the invitation to do this from GI Jobs and the good folks there. I've been associated with GI Jobs for a number of years, and you know, see their magazines everywhere I go, and all the military installations. And I know they're put to good use by transitioning service members and their families and their spouses. So I appreciate the job that you guys have done on behalf of our veterans. So I've only got about 20 minutes. I've got about 400 minutes worth of information and materials I'd want to share, but I'm going to go a little fast. Both Tommy and I are from New Jersey. We probably talk faster than most people are used to, so listen fast. So as you heard in the introduction, I've been around the block a little bit, spent a couple of decades in the military and a couple of decades since then in service to the military in one way, shape, or form. Spent some time working on the TRICARE side, and then the last several years working transition assistance. So what I'm going to tell you today is kind of a mixture of my own personal observations, things that I've seen over the years, both in the military as I was transitioning out, as many of you are, and then working with transitioners, both active duty, reserve, National Guard, and spouses who are, as they're transitioning as well. So this is important for everybody. And the experience that I've had, particularly as the program manager under the Labor Department to oversee the Career Transition Assistance Program that you heard mentioned, I got to see a lot of everything. A lot of what we did in those classes, in those TAP classes, we did them for 7 years, ending in 2019. Revolved around what I'm going to talk about today, and that's the resume. And I'm going to talk about resumes, but I'm also going to talk about a couple of other things that are just as important. So resumes, resumes will get you your interview. Interviews are what gets you the position. Let me try again, see if I can get this to. No, that's not going to the screen show. Anyway. So you won't get to see all my fun transitions, but we'll make it work. Resumes they're not fun to do. I know that. I've done a bunch of them myself. I've helped others with them, but they are the ticket to the game. You've got to do it. It's not the fun part. The fun part to me, both on both sides of the equation, is the interview itself, where you can actually expound upon what you've done in your resume, what you said, get to interact with somebody else or a panel. I think that's the fun part. And however, you're not going to get there without getting there. I've never seen in my entire career, both careers, I have never seen anybody yet get a job offer based purely on the resume. It's always been some sort of secondary screen, whether it's Skype or Zoom or Teams, or back in the day when I actually called somebody into the office and they were interviewed. So number one, you have to do it. So just get past that. The second part is prepare, gather your information. I call it an I Love Me binder. We taught this in the TAP class. They may still teach it in the TAP class. This is something that I learned when I retired back in 1999. And it's just a way to get organized, get all of your information together. And I just called it an I Love Me binder. Started with the box, and then it became a little bit more organized in a binder. And you've got plenty of source material. You've got your evaluation reports from your military service. You've got award narratives and nominations and certificates. All kinds of information that's already there for you. Much of it's written, but don't lose that. Gather it all together. Start getting everything in one place, so you have much more easy access to it. And then as you go through and you start to think about your transition, continue to gather that information, whatever it is, that you can use to help craft your resume and talk about your background. I think if you've been in for any number of years, you'll find that there's a lot of information there. All of those citations that you've received, the schools that you've gone to, training you've had, but most importantly, I think it's the evaluation reports. And you're also going to have an opportunity to pay somebody to write your resume. Now, my personal opinion and my professional opinion is that you don't need to do that. There are plenty of people out there who are good at it, who can help you with your resume. and maybe you'd want to give that a try. My suspicion is that you are the best person to write your resume. You know you better than anybody. There's no shortage of examples out there on the internet. There's no shortage of people who have already done resumes who can help you craft yours in different styles and so forth. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But I just caution you that when you're approached to have somebody pay to prepare your resume, you may want to do that, but first I would look inward and see if it's something that you can do on your own with the help of some friends and some other examples that you can see. A few other key points about the resume, and I know this is dry, and I'll try to make it make sense to you. Length. You see all kinds of examples of how long a resume should be. Conventional wisdom now is 2 pages. If you can do it in 1 page because you perhaps are young and you haven't had a full career, that's fine. 2 pages is kind of optimum. You can maybe go a little bit over, but once you get beyond 2 pages and get into a longer, I just received a 6-page resume today. It's just difficult to digest. I don't need that much information in a screening your resume. I get more data when I talk to you in an interview. So be careful that you don't put too much in your resume that you're going to bog the reader down, that you're going to bore the reader, and that you don't have anything left to talk about in an interview. Most people like me who review a lot of resumes only give it a few minutes, if that, when you first look at it. I'll look at it again in more depth before I do an interview, so I don't ask a question that I should know the answer to. But I would try to keep it at 2 pages. Various formats are out there. You can have a chronological resume, which is exactly as it sounds. You start from the most recent and work backward, and maybe go back 10 years. You can go back a little further if you need to. And then you have functional resume, which is really just chopped up pieces of function that you've done. So if you were a logistician for a while and in various different parts of your career, or an administrative person for various parts of your career, you could put those in chunks, and then based on the requirement that you're going after, you can move those paragraphs up and down in your resume, so the most relevant one is up front. That also tends to hide, and I use the word carefully, hide some downtime that you might have had if you had a break in service, or if you're unemployed for a while. You can't see that as much. And then there's the combination resume, which is exactly as you might guess. It's a functional resume, and then at the end you can put a chronological listing of where you were when. So that fills in some of those gaps. Generally, I would say the older you are, the longer you've been working or in the service, you might want to look at that combination resume or functional resume. If I got a job at the White House when I was a second or first lieutenant, and now here I am decades later, it might seem old to put that in a chronological resume, but don't I want people to know that I passed the smell test and was hired to actually work at the White House? I do. So I want to somehow get that into my resume. So a functional resume would serve me best there. References. I see it all the time. I know many of you have done it. I've done it too back in the past. And you put on that last sentence that says references are available upon request. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of space. Everybody knows that your references are available upon request, so you don't need to say it. Consider those 2 pages as sacred space. You don't have much because you don't want to go end to end and frame to frame. You want to have some white space in there so it's easy to read, but it's sacred territory. Don't clutter it up with things that you don't need to put in there. Only put in there what's important. So, and then when you do your references, they should be in the same typeset, same format as your resume, and you have them available when they do request them. White space I mentioned briefly. You just don't want to bog the reader down in vision problems because you've just put every word you can think of on this page. Professional emails. When you have an email address on your resume, obviously it should be professional. It shouldn't be, ihatework.net or something even worse than I've seen, all kinds of stuff that would maybe surprise you. So keep it professional. Use your name dot, Comcast.net or whatever it happens to be. Don't hurt yourself by having some funny, what you think to be a funny email account or a funny phone message when you have a phone number there for people to call you, and you've got some silly recording out of the house recording. Don't do that. Have a professional email address and phone message. Resumes are not job descriptions. I see it all the time too. Responsible for. These are job descriptions, and this does not tell me or the reader or the hiring manager what you did and how you did it and what the impact was. If you've gone through the TAP class, I think they still teach this. We certainly taught it, and I would teach any of you use the CAR method when you're writing your resume, CAR. What were the circumstances? What was the action taken or overseen? What were the results? That tells me, the reader, what the conditions were, what actions you took, or what you oversaw, and then what happened. What was the result? You saved money, you made money, you reorganized an organization, you worked at a certain level. It's much more descriptive, and that gets to the next part, and that's to quantify. Quantify. Use data. Tell me, what the scope was. If you were in the Army, an executive officer at the battalion level is different than an executive officer at the brigade or division level. The scope of responsibility is much different. I need to know that. Don't assume that whoever's reading your resume spent any time in the military. They're not going to know what some of that jargon is to begin with. And when you start just giving them job descriptions and not saying, well, this was 400 people, not 40. This was $2 million worth of equipment, not a single piece, not just my rifle. Dollars and cents, percentages, how much, whatever you can do to quantify, that tells the reader that much more about you and your capabilities. You've probably seen this movie, right? Proofreading is so critical. I can't tell you how important it is. This is your most important document, your resume. You want it to be perfect. It has to be perfect. I can tell you that I and many of my colleagues have seen resumes that had errors, maybe even one error. And if you want to look for an administrative job and you don't even take care of your own resume to make sure it's perfect, that tells me you're probably not going to care too much about the work I give you. And what's worse is that resume is going to get trashed and you're never going to know why. Because I'm not going to call you and tell you, hey, your resume was full of errors. That's not my job. It's nobody's job. It's your job to get your resume straight and make sure that it's proofread over and over and over again, not just by you, but by someone you trust or several people that you trust. Obviously, never lie. Seen this too. Tommy, you may have seen it as well. People will embellish on their resume. Don't do that. I've caught too many people in a lie, and then they have to go away. So there's no reason to lie. Not that you would, but sometimes there's a temptation to embellish a little bit and make yourself sound better than you should. You're just going to get caught, and then it's going to be very embarrassing at the best. At embarrassing, and you might lose your job. So never do that. And one way to make sure is to run your resume by people who know you best. Is it somebody you work with, a family member, parent, best friend, or your spouse? If you have a spouse or a significant other, that is a person who probably knows you at least as well, maybe even better than you know yourself. And they will catch you in not only technical errors on your resume, but also if they might say, look, I don't think that you really want to say it that way, or that you really want to put that on your resume, and they'll tend to be honest with you. So when you do get some help from others, make sure you tell them that you need their honesty, you need their personal and professional feedback. And speaking of spouses, I will say that, you know, when we did the TAP program for many years, and now working with the VA on VA benefits, spouses are always invited to those events. Spouses are PCSing, or in this case, retiring or separating, just like their sponsor. Spouses have jobs, spouses have resumes, spouses can benefit from this information as much as the military member. So I would encourage each of you who maybe have not talked to your spouse about taking advantage of these events that you should. It helps both of you. The crux of this is how to get your resume noticed, whether it's into an organization for a review or at a job fair, and that is do research. You got to research the industry that you're looking at. You got to research the employer that you're looking at. There's no reason in the world with today's capabilities with the internet that you can't find anything on any organization. Even a one-person company has a website nowadays. You can find out a lot. I have seen people in previous jobs and in this job come to me looking for a job and asking me, what do we do? Coming to me for a job and asking, what do we do? Unacceptable. You've got to do your homework and got to do your research. So know what that organization does. Know what that business has been doing. Have they acquired another company? Have they innovated in some way? What are they up to? Just know your audience. Target your resume. What does that mean? It means that if you're going after a certain position, that your resume should indicate that this is the job, the position you're seeking, and that your resume should contain some of those keywords and phrases that you find in the position description and in the recruitment effort, especially if you're going after a federal job, because that's how, or in the large company, because those resumes are screened against those keywords and phrases that you have to have in your resume that match what the requirements are. And first impressions, the first impressions are obviously your physical first impression, your handshake, and all those things when you interview, but your resume also carries a first impression. As I said, if it's not accurate, if it's not well written, if it's got mistakes, that's a bad first impression and pretty much done. On the other hand, if it's well presented and it looks clean and it looks neat, looks like you've taken your time with it, that makes a good first impression, and you can go on to the next phase, which is you hope to get a call for an interview. Just a couple of quick things, and I know I'm probably getting close to my time. The first one there are cows and buffaloes. So I don't remember where I've seen this, but I kind of like the analogy. Are you a cow or a buffalo? And the analogy is this, that in a storm, when things are tough, when things are uncertain, particularly in a thunderstorm, a cow will walk slowly, because that's what cows do, away from the storm. It's their instinct to walk away from the storm. A bull, on the other hand, a buffalo rather, runs into the storm. They run toward the storm. So what's the purpose of this analogy? Well, what happens when you run into the storm? You expose yourself a lot less for a shorter period of time. And what I want you to take from this is, look, this transition that you're going through or going to go through is difficult. It's challenging. Run to it. Don't, just embrace it. Don't run away from it. Don't keep postponing what you have to do, because eventually it will catch up to you, and like a cloud, it'll hang over you for the duration. You've got to run towards it. You got to be prepared and put a smile on your face, because this is one time that you're in charge of your future. The ladder leaning against the wall, we all know the analogy of climbing the ladder of success. And I'm for that. You want to climb the ladder of success to the point that you're satisfied, but just be careful and be sure that the ladder is leaning against the right wall. You don't want to get to the top rung of your success ladder and realize this isn't what I wanted to do. This isn't where I wanted to be. This isn't my dream. But somebody told you it should be. Somebody thought that this is what you should be pursuing because that's what you did in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, Marine Corps, whatever it is. You got to spend some time to figure out what you want to do, where you want to do it, what you want to be, and then lean that ladder on that right wall and be prepared to move that ladder now and then too, because things do change. Oreos. Why do I have Oreos on here? Real quick. Number one, I love Oreos, and I know you do too, because Oreos are the best-selling cookie in the world. I've been saying that for years, and I finally looked up, and it is. Oreos created back in 1912. People think 1912, oh, that's the Titanic. No, that's when Oreos were invented. That's what's important to me. The thing about Oreos is, if you've been around for a while, you see that package on the left. Package used to be all cellophane. I mean, it was all cellophane. And when you open that package, you were committed, because it just tore. And you had two choices. I see Tommy nodding his head. You have two choices. You either eat the whole package, choice number one, or you find some Tupperware and you save them. But it was a mess, and it was loud and nasty. Now you see on the package on the right, you've all seen them now. Nabisco has a new package, relatively new. And it's got this little seal, quiet little seal that you go down and late at night in the kitchen and you open the door in the cupboard and you get that seal and you break that seal, you peel it open, nobody can hear you. You get in there, you take a couple Oreos and you close it back up, nobody knew the difference. My point is this: Oreos is the best-selling cookie in the world. They did two things. Number one, they innovated. They changed their packaging. They rebranded themselves. Even though they were the best in the world, they still did that. Also, if you watch TV, you'll see that they advertise. Do they need to advertise? You walk down the aisle, I walk down the aisle in the market, I see Oreos, I put them in the basket. But yet they advertise. Best-selling cookie in the world innovates and advertises. What's the message to you? You're the best-selling cookie in the world. You're the best that there is. You still have to rebrand yourself now that you're in a transition. You still have to innovate and figure out what you can do that you haven't been doing. And you've got to advertise. You got to let people know that you're out there, that you are transitioning, that you're looking for other opportunities. You've got to network. I'll get this right eventually. So my last slide is the network. It's much easier now, could be a little more dangerous now, but you've got to let people know that you're out there, that you're looking for opportunities, where you want to be, what kind of work you want to do, whether you want to be in a leadership job or you don't want to be in a leadership job, inside, outside, all of those things that you probably will or have learned in a TAP class are important. I have my job, I love my job, but I still network like crazy, because you just never know who you're going to talk to, who you can help or can help you or help somebody that you know. But you got to get out there. All of the folks that are introverts that don't particularly like that, try to do it. Try to get yourself out there and talk to people. Talk to everybody. When you're at Starbucks or you're at a pub or you're at a restaurant, get in a conversation if you can, and let people know who you are and what you're doing. You just never know who can help you get to that next step. So with that, keep going backwards. I know we're going to do questions at the end, so I'll turn it back to Daryl, and I'll await your questions.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Great insight. Absolutely fantastic. If we could, gentlemen, before we move on to Tommy's segment, if we could just take a quick pit stop and just, come together and collaborate for a second. And Dave and Tommy, please feel free to chime in as well. I'd like to talk a little bit about ATS's, applicant tracking systems, keywords in your resume. I know that that's something that everybody struggles with. How do I identify keywords in a job requisition, and how often do I place them in my resume? If you guys don't mind just providing some of your experiences, that would be great.
Tommy?
Sure. Yeah. So I think there's a misconception that every company uses these scraping tools that only picks up keywords and they're on the resume. There may be some out there, but I would say that it's probably maybe 50-50. I don't know what the accurate number is, but I wouldn't assume that. What I would say is that it's critical to look at the qualifications of the job, right? So the basic qualifications, preferred qualifications. Obviously, if they're putting preferred qualifications in there, that's where you want to focus your time and energy on, because you want to be above the peer group that you're applying to. So I would focus on the keywords that are in the job description, really focus on the ones that are in the qualification section, and make sure that you're interweaving that into your resume. If you think about it from the perspective of beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? They're going to read your resume, and if those things that they wrote, like here at Verizon, our recruiters write our job descriptions, right? So if they see things that are on your resume that is something they've written in the same type of verbiage, it's going to attract them to that, right? So you want them to be able to focus in on that. That would be my suggestion, and try to get at the top of the page, right? So if the job description has at the bottom of it basic qualifications, preferred qualifications, I would really focusing on taking some of that, shifting some of that into the opening statements, or however you write it. Some people write paragraphs at the beginning to kind of give their knowledge of what their background is. Some people start with bullets, right? Whatever you can do to kind of get that and say, all right, I want to read more about that person below. That's the key you want to be able to focus on. If they don't like the first half of the page, they're not going to read the rest of the resume. So I think that is the key focus for me and what I tell people to do. So I'll pass it over to Dave.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you said. Keywords and phrases, some large companies use those screening tools, the governments do as well. But I still screen for keywords and phrases in my little old company, because like you say, I'm looking, what did I put on the position description? And if I get a resume that has nothing to do with that, it's trashed. So make sure that you take some time to look for those things. And how do you identify them? You know, it's kind of maybe obvious. What's important to this company? They want somebody with leadership experience, or they want somebody with this particular technical expertise. It'll be in there. It's not hard to find. And if you possess those things, then that's what you want to highlight, as Tommy said. So there's no real magic to it. It's just that you want to give them what it is they're looking for, as long as you tell them the truth.
Great, thanks, Showman. Another question I have here, the GI Jobs Virtual Career Expo next week on Wednesday, May 26th. What's the impact of a potential candidate coming into a booth, trying to connect with an employer and not knowing anything about that organization? Tommy, I'm sure that, Verizon, you guys are a part of a lot of job expos, job fairs, whether it's virtual or in person. Can you describe what the impact is from your perspective for that candidate?
It's the biggest trend. It's, most of you have either deployed or been in combat or seen the biggest challenges of your life you thought were in the past. I think transition for me was one of the biggest challenges that I ever had. And being job ready means going fully knowing the list of employers that are going to be there and have at least limited knowledge of what that company, like Dave said, offers, right? It's a very common theme at a career fair where people come up to the table and are like, well, what do you got to offer me? Right. And I'm like, and my response is, as a retired first sergeant and drill sergeant, I'm like, oh, well, what do you have to offer us? Right. It's your time to showcase, like Dave said, every interaction is an opportunity for you to get a job. And if you're not on your game, you could miss that opportunity. So I think it's really imperative that, if you're coming to look for jobs at Verizon or any company, one, know what you want to be when you grow up to the best of your ability, right? Know what you're capable of doing and make sure you can articulate that to them, right? And then 3, be able to ask some questions about specific jobs or equipment that company may have to offer, because they're going to really see that you'll stand out from the person that's standing next to them going, oh, well, what does Verizon got to offer me? Or what does AT&T got to offer me, right? That will alone separate you from the peers and the people that are sitting next to you. If you ever go to a campus event, those individuals are very, very well prepared. They know it, they study it, they understand who's at the market in the operational environment, I should say, right? They know where they're going to be and who they're going to be speaking with. So that's your opportunity there to make sure that you're able to, to articulate what you're looking for. So it really can hurt you.
Thanks, Tommy. And then just a few questions from the audience. I want to kind of intertwine those as we go here. First, do you recommend that a candidate applies for a position on the company's website prior to coming to the virtual event?
I think either or. I think it won't hurt you if you don't, right? I do like when candidates say, yeah, hey, I applied to one of these jobs, right? And that really helps me, because I'll be able to take that requisition number down. I even may have time during the day to phone back to our recruiters and say, hey, can you do me a favor, take a look at Daryl's resume? I just had a phenomenal conversation with him. Can you tell me who the hiring manager is, right? You may have not gotten to him already on the slate, but I'll tell you, he or she is a rock star. Or this military spouse, has been moving around with their spouse for the last couple of years, really. She really brought it to life for me. And let me tell you why I think she's going to be a perfect fit. So I do think that, there's time and places, right? If you found the job that you're interested in, pull the trigger. In military spouses, for example, in most companies go first in, first out. So they go from, the first applicant to the second, to the third, to the fourth. With veterans, you have the ability, because it's a protected class, to skip and go to veterans if that company allows you to flag that person individually. So you have an advantage in that case. My thing is if a job's been open for a long period of time, apply, get in there as soon as possible. This way you're not missed. You're at the bottom of the bucket, right? Or the bottom of the talent pool, because you may not even get considered. And that is a hit on your mindset too, right? Applying to jobs and not getting responses. So that's how I would handle that situation.
Awesome. Thank you. As I said before, next Wednesday, March 26th, or May 26th, excuse me, I was going back in time, May 26th, GI Jobs Virtual Career Expo. If you hop in, you sign up, register right away. The reason I say to complete your registration is employers are hopping in there now and sourcing candidates that are completing a full registration. So what that means is go through, fill out every single block that's required, and attach your resume. It's extremely important. If you want to get noticed prior to the event, fill it out in its complete entirety. Be on the lookout. Employers might reach out to you and actually schedule or invite you to come to their booth at a specified time so that you could go ahead and have that one-on-one conversation with them. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to go ahead and hand things over to the baddest man on the planet, Tommy Jones. I'm not saying that he told me to say that, he might have, but Tommy, the floor is yours, brother. We're looking forward to it. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And this is just to add on to all the great things that Dave said related to your resume. I mean, these should be harmonious to each other. They should be talking to each other. What's on your resume should also be on your LinkedIn profile. Every opportunity is an opportunity for you to get hired, right? So I'm going to transition and share my screen here and walk through the LinkedIn gear that I have here that I want to be able to focus on. So hoping you all can see my screen here. I'm assuming that it is working, and I'm going to just switch it here so that you're not seeing all this other stuff, and we should have a good to go here. All right, so there's a couple areas that I want to focus on. The biggest areas are the banner, the profile picture, and name and headlines. Let me minimize this so it's not in your way here. So your banner, right? So your banner is this area up here in the top, the backdrop, whatever you want that to look like, give your profile a personal touch by selecting, visually engaging photography. A profile picture, and I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth on each one of them. A photo makes, you feel your profile feel more warm and human. Your name, remove initials, acronyms, titles from names to make your profile easier to find. It's very difficult. I mean, I have a name, Tom Jones, right? Tommy Jones. There's a million of me there. So it's easy to find me when you say Tommy Jones Verizon, right? Or Tommy Jones Army. You'll start to see how you tie those together in some of the subsequent slides. And then your headline, right? Use this to tell your network what you do, list your job, to get creative. I've seen some really, really cool creative ideas for people that put up there, transitioning out of the military, putting American flags or a little salute icon, anything that kind of stands out to the reader. It's going to catch their eye. You want them to spend as much time in your profile as possible. So let's dig in a little bit deeper on the basics. On the about area, this is your opportunity, just like on your resume is your opportunity. It's the read-in, right? It's the preamble for the story. So this is where you want to be able to make sure that you're writing the most quantitative information you possibly can that's going to sell that person to read more about you, right? Again, it matches what you should be doing on your resume. If you're trying to be an art director, then you should be saying, I am a polished, art director with X, Y, and Z experience. If you've already looked at jobs, right, you might want to incorporate that in some of the qualifications of those jobs. You might want to add that in here. The key is to be creative and make sure that it's well received and that people want to learn more about you and read more about your past experiences, so that hopefully there's an opportunity for them to either pick up the phone or send you an email through LinkedIn. Follow up by relating with your passions. You never want to miss an opportunity, right? So me personally, there's things that I love in life. One is I love my service to my country. I love my family. I love my dogs. I love surfing. I love rugby. Those are things that I'm very passionate about. And who knows if someone else that's reading my resume is an avid surfer or is an avid dog lover, right? That may be the connection that you need to be able to connect with them, and it could be your opportunity for your next job. And then focus on your experiences. Really make sure that all your job titles, dates, and locations are, really well defined. I'm not a big fan of just listing, name of the title. I like to do just like in your evaluations from the military. I like to do a small 2 or 3 paragraphs or 2 or 3 sentences at the top under each job to kind of talk about what this job is and what it entailed. And then a few key bullets with quantitative data underneath there. Again, lifting and shifting from the resume and plopping it onto your LinkedIn profile, and then making sure that it tells a really good story about what you want to be and what jobs you're trying to look for. The next area is your profile picture, right? So looking at these profile pictures, they say people with great profile pictures attract more and 4 times more views than those without a photo. So now I know why I don't get any views or looks at my profile, just because I'm ugly. You can't fix ugly, but hey, hopefully you can do something that makes something even more attractive to the others, right? So your eyes, show your eyes. It can harm the first impressions. You want to make sure that you're focusing on it. So if you look at the gentleman on the left wearing sunglasses, maybe that is a way of you showcasing that you're hip and that's the culture that you feel. But again, if you're not seeing the eyes of that person, you may not be displaying the best person that you want to. Free of glare, shadows, messy hair. Again, and maybe that is something that you want to do. Maybe you're looking for a creative art director role, and that's the creativeness that you want to showcase. Again, it's what you're looking for, and your picture should match your personality, your what, and the job that you want to get. Your background, make sure that it's clean and clear. This picture on the left here, the girl's you can tell she's in a bedroom or something to that effect. She's got dresser drawers with the drawer coming open. Again, people are, we notice everything, right? It's human nature for people to look at pictures and really dissect them and learn more about them. So bring your whole self in that picture to the display. Attire and position. Again, dress in your work attire. And what is that? Work attire nowadays has gone full spectrum. Again, there's an opportunity for you to showcase who you want to be and what you want them to see. And if wearing a golf shirt like I'm wearing today is something that's the kind of role that you want to be in, then maybe that's the right position that you want to do. But you'll know that if you're not getting those contacts for a consulting agency, or maybe you're going to work for a law office, probably not the organization that you want to be showcasing and showing up with a golf shirt on. Next, smile, right? Everybody, there's enough negativity in this world, and we want to work with the best person that is the most qualified person, and that is someone that is pleasant to work with, and that brings a good culture to the organization. So if you can smile in your photo, I would absolutely do that. Next, let's talk about networking and job searches. So find other veterans. There's a couple of things that I agree with here and I disagree with you, right? So looking at past veteran filters, like I talked about, putting in, I was a former first sergeant, those are things. So now you're looking at Tommy Jones, first sergeant, Army, easier to find me, right? So those are things that you could also do when you start to look at Tommy Jones, Verizon, First Sergeant, telecommunications, whatever those keywords can be to help you get there. Don't be narrow-minded and only focus on people with veterans or veterans to help you get your job. I am not a fan of spending a lot of time and energy trying to reach out to two different groups. One, other veterans in the company, and recruiters, right? Those, most of the time, recruiters are completely bombarded, right, with other candidates that had the same thought process as you. And I'll talk through some examples of how we can do that towards the end of the slides. But I want you to think about this as you start to, navigate. I was a very disgruntled transitioning service member. I was like, all these companies say they want to hire veterans, but they don't want to hire veterans. They're just doing it for brand recognition. And what I found out is that 1% of the population served. That means 1% of the population is in the job market as well that were veterans, right? So there's a smaller population, and less people know what a military spouse is and the challenges that she or he has had as they moved following a spouse around for another opportunity. And less people know exactly what a service member does. They may have watched, Zero Dark 30. They might have watched, a bunch of military movies. But 30, 40 years ago, everybody had family members that served. Nowadays, a very small population have served. I will tell you that people generally want to help service members and military spouses navigate through this tough time in their career. So utilizing that to your advantage, right? Making sure that you're reaching out to that civilian population who endearingly wants to help you find an opportunity. And they could be advocates for you as you start down this transition. Join relevant professional groups. I tell my recruiters to source for talent in these professional networking events, right? So these professional groups can be really beneficial to you. One, you have other peers in your organizations or like-minded, like Veteran Mentor Network, where you can find other people that will be honest about your resume, will be honest about giving you, the tips and tricks of the trade on how you navigate the recruitment process or the interview process. So take advantage of those. And then learn from the professional development communities that are out there. There's so much information out there. There's over 40,000 veteran nonprofit organizations out there. Try to get into these groups and learn which the best ones are for you that will help you more with your transition. Let the recruiters know you're looking. So there's a new feature on LinkedIn that you can say open for job, open for work. Definitely, I would definitely encourage you to do that. I would also encourage you that once you get the job, take it down, right? Because people can still see that when you're on that job, right? And being very active in LinkedIn, right? Writing nice content, writing things that are going to show the type of person you are and the type of candidate that you're bringing or that you're bringing to an organization also says a lot about you. And you're able to do that through a lot of things on LinkedIn. Find the best jobs to apply. This is the hardest thing, I think. It's really having to dig in and doing your research and understanding, harder now than any other time, because there's so many jobs out there with so many different levels. A director here at Verizon may be a senior vice president at a banking company, or a vice president at a banking company might be an individual contributor here at Verizon. So understanding that landscape is extremely important. And as you start to apply, and then utilizing multiple different websites like salary jobs or Indeed salary to understand what you're looking for from a compensation standpoint. Again, we touched on earlier in Dave's presentation and the question and answer session was around the qualifications. Don't fluff anything. If you know the answer, I would definitely, if you know what the qualifications are and you know that you have those qualifications, showcase them as best as you can. What we do find is that women generally do not apply to jobs if they don't meet all the qualifications. I will tell you that is not a good idea. I would focus more on getting the opportunity to make sure that you are showcasing as much as yourself as you possibly can, get in there and get an opportunity as soon as possible. and then set clear salary expectations. Leverage LinkedIn learning resources, and there's a bunch of stuff on there that you're able to do on LinkedIn, and I'll show you that. I'm going to navigate in 2 seconds here just to kind of talk you through the way that we do things and how you can transition. But LinkedIn has some really great learning pathways, helpful courses to really help strengthen your transition from a military to the civilian sector for both women, men, veterans, spouses. It'll really help you set yourself up for success. And then in closing, I'm going to just kind of transition real quick because I want to show you some tips that I've learned for myself, and I think that it's beneficial to everybody. So this is Verizon's career page. You know, it is a 99% chance that the jobs that we have posted, somebody already has that job and already has that on their career fit on the LinkedIn page. So if you hit search, I just kind of pre-did this already. And let's say you find a client partners role in sales in Ashburn, Virginia. You go to your LinkedIn page and you put that in here up top. You say client partner, Verizon, Ashburn, hit search. You're going to see that there's people that already have this job already in here. You have the ability to help yourself more than you think you can. And I guarantee you that, you know, you might not get a response every time. You get free LinkedIn for 1 year, both veterans and spouses. You should be capitalizing that because you're able to do those emails and send messages to these candidates, but it's really going to pay off to you. So let's say you're interested in this client partner role and you reach out to Patricia. She has no military experience at all, but she's like, you know what? Hey, Tommy, I think you might have a little bit. Let's spend some time together. Let's talk a little bit. Let me look at your resume. Actually, you're a great fit. We don't have any roles here, or I don't think you're a good fit. But I do know somebody here at AT&T who's a competitor of us that could be a big fit. There is no competitive landscape when we are trying to hire veterans and military spouses. I, as the head of the military program for Verizon, will share talent with AT&T, with T-Mobile. We have the best interest in place for you all. So again, use this as a tool to help you, focus on some of the areas that can make you more beneficial. I'm also going to throw in the chat. If you go to or just Google, right, social impact LinkedIn, you're going to get this resource page. There's a ton of resources here. You can sort it by military spouses, by veterans, and you can see different tools that you may need. So I'm going to throw this into the chat and allow you guys to kind of take time to look through that, but I think it'll really benefit you. And then this is just another view of it as well that kind of talks about some of the coaching. So these are other things that kind of help pad your portfolio and make you more job ready as you start to transition out of the military or get within that window. So I know I've done a lot of talking. I talked as fast as I possibly can to give you as much information as possible, but I want you to be able to ask questions. So I'm going to stop, pause, and flip it back over to Daryl and answer any questions you may or may not have. I want to thank you all for your service and support, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you, Tommy. Absolutely great advice for LinkedIn, a very powerful network and platform that everybody should be utilizing. I do have one question specifically for Dave and Tommy, and it's in reference to military spouses. We all know that military spouses, which are the backbone of our military family, they struggle with a little bit with, having to move every 2 to 3 years. What type of advice do you give to a military spouse who's interviewing for a job? Should they be up front at the potential that they could be moving in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I'll take that one first, Daryl. Yes, I think you want to be honest with your employer at all times. And I wouldn't run away, just like a military member, don't run away from your service. Though you don't want to say, some specific things, and maybe you can't on your resume if you had classified work. But I wouldn't expect spouses to. I know we happen to hire a lot of military spouses, the nature of our work. But that fact that the spouse has moved a lot with his or her sponsor is an advantage in many ways. You bring cultural diversity, you bring experience from all over the country, all over the world. You've proven that you can adapt to changing situations rather easily. There's value in that. And most times if you're traveling and moving around with a spouse, you're going to be somewhere for at least a year if it's a school, and probably 3 years, maybe even longer now, in one spot. So it's not, it's not like and I'll speak for me as an employer, I'm not really worried if you're going to leave in 2 or 3 years. I might be worried if you're going to leave in 2 or 3 months, but in 2 or 3 years, I've gotten my money's worth from you, and because all those things I just mentioned that you bring to the table. So I think spouses should be absolutely honest and tell the truth. Most employers are going to recognize that. They're going to find out that your spouse is military, and most people know that military people move around, so don't try to hide it. That's my advice.
Thanks, Dave. And then Tommy, being the head of Verizon's military program, how many LinkedIn messages do you get daily from veterans or from military spouses that are looking for a connection?
I get as much emails as I get LinkedIn. I literally, at Verizon alone, internally to Verizon, and I am not an email person at all, but I literally get probably 400 to 500 emails a day in Verizon alone. From a LinkedIn standpoint, I would say on average, I'm getting between 50 to 100 a day, right?
And how do I grab your attention as a potential candidate? Because you're not going to be able to answer back to all, 50.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't Facebook, right? This is a networking opportunity for you. So, you have an opportunity when you're connecting with me to grab my attention. So when you say add Tommy, there's connect with Tommy, there's an opportunity to add a note. If you don't have time to add a note, I'm not saying that I'm some special person and that you should, but again, marketing yourself, like Dave was talking about, every opportunity is an opportunity for you to get in and connect with us. So take the opportunity to take that personal time to say something, add a note, right? Doesn't mean drop all your qualifications in there, but it could be something like, hey, I saw you did this, or I did this, and I'd love to connect with you. That goes a long way. It may grab my attention to be able to do it. I am a person that I like to wait till the end of the week. I go back through all my LinkedIn messages and I try to respond them on a regular basis. I don't live on LinkedIn on a regular basis, but some people do, right? Especially if you're on the market.
Great. Thanks, gentlemen. I think that's basically going to be a wrap for us. We are going to launch a poll right now. It's going to come up on the screen. Audience, if you could, please fill out the poll questions that come up so that we understand how to best serve you. As those are going on, I just want to remind everybody, May 26th, next Wednesday, GI Jobs Virtual Career Expo from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please sign up and register at gijobs.com/expo. Dave, Tommy, thank you today for presenting your experience, your advice. Everything is absolutely invaluable. Thank you to our veterans, our transitioning service members, and military spouses for attending today as well. We hope you found this workshop to be informational, engaging, and more importantly, we hope that you walk away with a better understanding on how to get yourself noticed and ultimately get hired. Have a great rest of the week. We wish you guys nothing but the best of success, and we hope to see you next Wednesday. Thank you.